The countdown clock on the wall showed 4 minutes left, and every eye in the arena was on me. My name is Ellie Foster, and I was the only human ever accepted into Caldress Academy, a school built for the smartest and strongest young minds from a dozen different worlds. I had spent 8 months there without raising my voice once, no matter what anyone said to me. That silence was about to end, right there, in front of the whole school, during the final round of the Academy trials. The trials were not a fight. Nobody at Caldress was allowed to harm another student. Instead, every year, the top students faced each other in a test of nerve, focus, and quick thinking called the pressure chamber. 2 students stood on opposite platforms while the room around them changed without warning. Gravity would shift, lights would vanish, sound would roar in from every direction. The only way to win was to stay calm and solve the final puzzle before your opponent did, while your mind was being pulled in every direction at once. My opponent was Draven Voss, the top student in our year, and the person who had made my first week at Caldress miserable. He had called me weak in front of the entire class. He had said humans were too soft to survive real pressure. He had spent 8 months waiting for a moment exactly like this one, a moment where he could prove it to everyone watching. I did not answer him back then. I only watched, and I learned. I studied every trick he used to unsettle other students. I noticed how he raised his voice to control a room, how he used sudden movement to break someone's focus, how he never actually did anything harmful, just loud, sudden, and confusing. He did not need to be dangerous. He only needed to make people panic. But panic was never my problem. I grew up hiking through storms in the mountains back home, where the weather could change in seconds, and a person had to keep their head clear no matter what happened around them. My grandmother used to say that fear was just excitement without a plan. I had a plan. The buzzer sounded, and the chamber lights dropped to almost nothing. A low hum filled the air, and the floor beneath my feet tilted, slowly at first, then faster, until I had to plant my legs wide just to stay upright. Across the room I could hear Draven's breathing pick up speed. He always moved first, always tried to finish quickly. I decided to do the opposite. I closed my eyes for 1 second, just one, to reset my thoughts, and then I opened them and looked for the puzzle panel that would appear somewhere in the room. A screen flickered to life above me, showing a pattern of shifting lights, numbers rising and falling in sequence. This was the final challenge. A code that had to be solved by matching the pattern before it looped back to the start. Most students rushed straight into guessing, hoping speed alone would save them. I had learned something different from watching Draven fail against other students in earlier rounds. He always guessed fast and got close, but never exact, because his mind moved too quickly for accuracy. I took a breath and watched the pattern complete one full loop before I moved. Around me, the room grew louder, the way it always did in the final 2 minutes, a wall of sound meant to break focus. I heard Draven shout something across the chamber, trying to throw off my concentration, but I did not let it reach me. I kept my eyes on the numbers, counting the intervals, matching them to a rhythm I could feel in my own heartbeat. The gravity shifted again, pulling sideways this time, and I stumbled but caught myself against the platform railing. Somewhere behind me, I heard a small crash, followed by a frustrated shout. Draven had lost his footing. For the first time since the trials began, he sounded uncertain. I did not turn to look. I kept working through the numbers in my head, one sequence at a time, building the code from memory instead of trying to read it all at once. The lights above me spun faster, red and gold streaks crossing the ceiling, but none of it mattered anymore. My mind had found its rhythm, the same rhythm I used on mountain trails when the wind tried to knock me off balance, and I simply kept walking, one steady step after another. With 30 seconds left, the final panel appeared in front of me, waiting for the last part of the code. My hands were steady as I entered the sequence, number by number, calm and sure. Across the chamber, Draven was still trying to catch up, his voice rising in frustration as he shouted out guesses that did not fit the pattern. I entered the final number, and the chamber went silent. A soft chime rang through the room, and every light turned a steady blue, the signal that the trial was complete. My platform rose gently back into position, and the noise, the shifting gravity, and the spinning lights all faded away, leaving only the sound of my own breathing and the quiet hum of the arena settling. I had won. The crowd in the observation deck stood in complete silence for a moment before the applause started, spreading slowly at first and then all at once, filling the chamber with sound that felt very different from the noise I had just walked through. I looked across the room and saw Draven standing on his platform, staring at me, his earlier confidence gone. He walked over as the lights came back to normal, and for the first time since I had arrived at Caldress, he did not have anything sharp to say. He simply looked at me and asked how I had stayed so calm through all of it, when even he, someone who had trained for this his whole life, had lost his footing halfway through. I told him the truth. I said that humans are not always the loudest in the room, and we are not always the fastest to react, but we are very good at waiting, watching, and staying steady when everything around us falls apart. I told him that every person who ever pushed me to react over the past 8 months had only taught me more about patience, not less. He nodded slowly, as if he was hearing something for the first time that he should have understood months earlier. Then he offered his hand, the same gesture I had seen students from his world use only for people they respected. I shook it, and the crowd around us cheered louder, not just for the winner of the trials, but for something that felt bigger than a single competition. News of the trials spread through the academy within hours, and by the next morning, professors from other departments were asking to meet me, curious about how a species so different from their own could remain so composed under pressure that had unsettled even their most gifted students. I answered every question calmly, the same way I had answered the final round, one steady step at a time. Draven and I never became close friends, but something shifted between us after that day. He stopped testing me, and instead started asking real questions, wanting to understand rather than provoke. Other students who had once ignored me began sitting closer during lectures, curious about a person they had underestimated for almost a year. I still did not raise my voice in the weeks that followed, not because I needed to prove anything anymore, but because I finally understood something my grandmother had tried to teach me long before I ever left home. Strength does not always announce itself. Sometimes it simply waits, quiet and steady, until the moment finally arrives when it needs to be seen. By the end of that year, Caldrus Academy had a new saying among its students, one that spread from classroom to classroom, until even the professors began repeating it. They said that if you ever wanted to see how strong someone truly was, you should not watch how loudly they spoke. You should watch how long they could stay silent, and what happened when that silence finally ended.